Recently, Bill Gates said that the entire profession of teaching is going to be obsolete in the next 5 to 10 years. What's happening is a kind of shape up or shape out kind of attitude. The ones who are using AI will get ahead. The ones who are still in their old stuff will find their own niches, but it's going to be increasingly difficult as we move towards a more AI driven society. See, the thing is that now AI has become conversational. You can actually, on your mobile phone, talk to it in any language, in any context. If the technology itself is not capable of being used by everybody, then it's a failure in my eyes.
Hi, good morning. Myself Shivani Aggarwal, working on the initiative called ARPIT, Annual Refreshing Program in Teaching, running out of the DLIT Lab, Dhananjay Lab of Education Design, IIT Ropar. Here, I'm glad to introduce our eminent speaker, Mr. Rahul Dutta from Dimensions Metaverse. He's based from Gurgaon and have tremendous vast experiences building metaverses and different pedagogical styles for the educators. Here we're just talking about how this new technologies and this new paradigm shift would be a good for educators. So I would really love to invite Mr. Dattas up to us. Please.
Thank you, Shivani, and thanks for the introduction. Just to give you an idea, I've been an educator and a visiting faculty and a pedagogical designer since 2003. My specialty, in a sense, is actually integrating emergent technologies like virtual and augmented reality, artificial intelligence, metaverses, and other fascinating tech into teaching teachers how to teach more effectively. It's a well-known issue that students by themselves can use technology on their own and teach themselves incredibly fast. In an age, in a world where we are, at a situation where technology also is ballooning, it's expanding. AI is going faster than most people can handle. It becomes more imperative for educators to firstly get an understanding of these new tools and secondly, get a grasp on how to actually use them to teach their own students more effectively and more efficiently. So there are multiple ways to do
Yeah.
this, right? One thing is that you create a metaverse platform
Perfect.
where the teacher and the student can engage remotely, but at a much higher interpersonal level than say Zoom, right? Whether the teacher is inside a virtual environment, and the students are also inside the same environment. They're
Wow.
sharing the same space, but the teacher can bring up any situation, any scenario, any three-dimensional asset into the world to explain to students better how the subject works. Other ways are also that teachers should also actively start embracing artificial intelligence and using it to actually figure out how to make their own pedagogies better and more efficient.
Yes.
So when I came across your initiative, it was a breath of fresh air because I don't see very many educational institutions actually taking the initiative to train their educators better. A lot of times, you see, what happens is that when a teacher is teaching the same thing many times, in a year or in any given period of time, there's a little bit of, I wouldn't call it stagnation, but something similar that sets in. That repetition is not very good for um, creativity in academics.
Even if we are having the changing students, different set of students, but the content remains same.
The content remains the same, and the content also at an educational, institutional level needs to be upgraded continuously because very few things remain the same over a period of time. And it's apart from the content that the teachers are teaching, it's a lot more important to focus on the methods that they're using to teach,
The delivery of the content.
the delivery of the content. Because in pandemic times, it was shown very forcibly to us that everybody has to now embrace work from home or teach from home
Very true.
or remote education. These things are now becoming very contextual. And they are also useful because they allow educational institutions to move very far beyond the physical seats that they have inside a campus.
True.
Right? So they can take on larger numbers of students. Now, with the larger numbers of students comes additional issues where teachers are at some level unable to give students an accurate analysis of their own performance,
Yes.
right? So what happened was that back in the day when a teacher had 5 students to their classroom, it was very easy for them to analyze each student's individual performance very effectively and give them a personal report based on that. Now, in a class where you have 100 students or more, that becomes very progressively difficult. It gets lost in that sea of faces.
Big
And
time.
as a consequence, the quality of the education also suffers. So we need to address this from multiple points of view: the teacher's viewpoint, the student's viewpoint, the administration's viewpoint, the technology's viewpoint, the educational system's viewpoint,
True.
and try and see if we can have a continuously evolving system, rather than one teacher teaching the same thing for 30 years.
I understand. Say while we're teaching, or any educator comes to the class, she may have very challenges and bottlenecks. For example, the pedagogical issues and the delivery of the content and the creation of a content and activity based.
Exactly.
Another could be how to evaluate further, how to watch and monitor the
Yeah,
students
the
throughout.
students, right.
These are the few challenges every teacher face. So how technology can address all these things?
Yeah, you see, the thing is that firstly, you know, even within educators, there's a wide disparity. The same teachers teaching the same subjects to the same students would be teaching it in very, very different ways. Right? They're the guys who are absolutely passionate about what they do. They're keeping themselves up to date on new trends. And they're the guys who've been teaching the same thing for the longest time. And they're not interested in anything except getting their next salary. Right? So there's a huge disparity when it comes to teaching. And conversely, what happens is that students are also built very, very differently.
Yeah.
They're the guys who are the brilliant ones. They're the guys who take very long to learn. So how do you actually create a system which is flexible and adaptable enough to allow for this disparity in teaching and give teachers a common platform so that the students' learning is, the learning outcomes are unaffected, right? Or efficient. And conversely, how do you have an education system that continuously adjusts itself to the speed each student is learning at, and adapts itself accordingly?
And how to adapt to this highly changing speedy technology. Technology is changing at such speedy rate. Like say, if something is viable today, may not be viable in the next week.
That's a really interesting question, and that hits at the heart of what educational institutions would face, right? That what's the best time to adopt a new technology into the pedagogy or to the curriculum? Now, given the fact that there's a lot of emergent technologies that are coming in, which are obsolete within like 6 months.
Very true.
As an example, I cannot tell you the amount of VR labs that I've set up for colleges, which were based on original things like Windows mixed reality, which 5 years down the line gets deprecated. There's no support for it anymore. All the lakhs that they've spent on the headsets is now wasted money. The thing to do is to actually create a system which is not so much reliant on technology,
Okay.
but on the efficient use of technology, or the efficient use or the dispersal of the training elements, or the teaching elements that the teachers are giving to their students. One elegant solution to this, for example, is AI.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to AI, we're never going backwards. The technology is evolving, but the platforms that are used to distribute the technology remain the same, right? I.e., your mobile phone and your laptop. That to me is a more stable version of the kind of tech that you can use. At the same time, I'm very much in favor of immersive learning. I have for a long time believed that there is no better way to learn than immersively, right, in a VR environment.
Yeah.
So, one aspect of this that we are targeting is that the kind of content we create, right, can be viewed across multiple headsets. So it doesn't matter if you're spending money on the evolution of the technology. The content and the platform by itself doesn't change all that much, or can be adapted to all these different evolutions of the technology very, very iteratively. So I mean, it's an ongoing issue, right? And from what I understand, what you're doing is that you're trying to actually put in a set of standards by which educators can teach themselves or upgrade
Upgrade
themselves.
themselves, yeah.
You know,
How everybody who is not tech savvy
right?
is able to use AI to
Yeah,
upgrade or to create content or to better their learning experience or teaching experience. How they
absolutely.
people can use AI who is not very tech savvy.
Yeah. See, the thing is that now AI has become conversational,
Yeah.
right? You can actually on your mobile phone talk to it in any language, in any context,
Any
ask it pretty
context.
much anything. I feel that's a very positive step. The issue with technology and teaching has always been that a lot of people are very resistant to new technologies coming in, right? Conversely, the technologies that are coming in are sometimes pretty complex to understand and to use, right? It's very tricky for me as a tech creator to introduce teachers to a VR paradigm, get them how to use the headset, and then get them to see if they can adapt their own, course structures and pedagogy into the virtual immersive environment that I'm talking about. It's a very tricky process. We have to guide them throughout the entire way. With AI, that entire technology is now put straight into the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, with AI, it's a very natural way of talking. You're just asking it questions like you'd ask anybody
In
questions
our vernacular languages.
in
Yes.
any language, right? So technology should always be at the background of these interactions, not at the forefront.
And uses should be on the forefront and
Yeah,
the
the
application
usage
should
should
be.
be on the forefront, So we're seeing a paradigm shift towards that. We're seeing a slower paradigm shift with VR spaces and stuff. But with
True.
AI, I think that's the perfect way to
Earlier,
go.
you were also talking about the local AI and AI agents for the teachers.
Yeah.
That was very interesting to me. Can you please elaborate on that?
It's
So
going to
that,
sound a little heretical,
okay.
right? But recently, Bill Gates said that the entire profession of teaching is going to be obsolete in the next 5 to 10 years,
Yeah, these are the new
right?
agents.
And I'm very fond of saying it that listen, at the ultimate level, I want to put teachers out of a job.
But here
No, of course, it wouldn't come out to that. What
we need to empower ourselves.
exactly? Like, see, the thing is that even with AI in across every profession, right? What's happening is a kind of shape up or shape out kind of attitude.
Yes.
That the ones who are using AI will get ahead. The ones who are still in their old stuff will find their own niches, but it's going to be increasingly difficult as we move towards a more AI-driven society, right? So it's a tricky issue, right? Because what happens is that AI agents, like can be created for a vast variety of things. My special focus and interest at the moment is to create AI teaching assistants who are assisting teachers
Wow.
in helping teach people more effectively. Right?
And those assistants will be able, it's helping us in all the challenges we face. For
It's
example, grading,
exactly,
evaluation, monitoring, and
absolutely.
activity-based creations and so on.
Everything that we've discussed so far. It's a very interesting thing to be able to create multiple sort of personas in a sense.
Is it possible? Very on a low budget thing. Low budget
I've done it on
means
zero budget with open source. So yes, it's absolutely possible.
wow.
You know?
It's like the local machines and the low bandwidth and
Yeah.
it's
See,
possible.
ultimately, you don't want this to be a little walled garden, ivory tower kind of situation where the technology and these paradigms are only accessible to a very few people, and those who've got like high bandwidth or those who've got like cool smartphones and stuff. Eventually, if the technology itself is not capable of being used by everybody, then it's a failure in my eyes. Right?
If it's not reaching to masses,
Yeah.
it is failure.
It's a failure. And the bigger majority, the people who we're talking about, the educators we're talking about, are not the really good educators that we find in an IIT or an NIT or places like that. Right? They're the guys who are sitting in these small government schools, getting paid 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees a month, looking for ways to actually earn more money or make it easier for them to actually do their job better and more efficiently using this kind of technology. This is where the tech will be of most effect, right? Eventually, I would also like to build in parallel spaces or your platforms or paradigms which function as teachers for students.
Okay.
To those students who don't have access to teachers.
It's like digital avatar.
Yeah, a digital avatar or a little person who talks to you, on your phone screen and is fed with all the data that you need for your
Okay.
class 5 education, your entire curriculum, all subjects, right? And it's just functioning as your all the time assistant or
24
teacher,
hours 7 available.
24/7 available. There's no need to go to a classroom or anything. No, I'm also like very much in favor of the interpersonal interaction and social interaction that happens inside classrooms, right? But see, at the core of it, you need to teach people effectively,
Yes.
and you need to teach a vast number of them effectively, right? Technology is a very elegant solution to that, but how you use the technology, right, as a technology creator is also a very critical aspect of it.
How to reach masses, how to tackle or combat the challenge they are facing in the remotest area of our country.
And the best technology is one that you don't even are not even aware that you're using. You
Yeah.
know, the best technology is one that's completely in the background. It's just doing its function and letting you become more powerful,
More
as a
powerful.
consequence.
What's your say on AR, VR, and XR experiences in education specifically?
See, now when education, as an educator, you're talking about retention, right? And the kind of learning people have when they're reading a textbook versus when they're watching a video versus when they're actually doing the things that they're supposed to do. So VR training, for example, brings about experiential learning, where your muscle memory is getting jogged, where you're inside the entire situation
And your
the
attention
environment.
is completely
Your attention is completely
with
captured,
us,
man.
captured.
You'd have to take off the headset to get out of that space.
Perfect.
Right? So for me, it's a pinnacle of the kind of learning that you can do. Right? Combine that with, say, AI teachers and AI avatars and AI non-player characters and things like that, the potential becomes even more incredible. Right? Where you're actually inside a space, having a conversation with the teacher, with your friends around you, and the teacher can be completely AI and you would never know it. They'd be absolutely human.
True.
Yeah.
Something you would like that every teacher should imbibe and not to update, or either attitude wise or the technological wise? What
Yeah,
a teacher
see, the
should do.
thing is that teachers have to be the ultimate learners. Teachers have to be better students than the students that they're teaching. I do
Every time.
feel that that openness to learning is a vital component that every teacher should have. Every educator should have.
And nowadays, our students are more tech savvy than the teachers.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
more open to the technologies.
True.
They know better than a teacher in the class,
Yeah, yeah.
technological wise.
Absolutely,
They're
yeah.
savvy.
And as somebody who creates programs for educators, I find this happening all the time because I find it so much easier to teach students because they get everything I'm saying like really rapidly, right? But what's happening now, and I can understand this from the point of view of somebody who's not technical, right? That it becomes bewildering. That how much can you do? How much internet can you go through? Where is all this stuff available? We are in a position where information, there is a glut of it, right? And sorting out the right information for you is always a challenge.
Very true, very true.
So the thing is that then our task also becomes like very crystal clear, right? That you have to show the path, to educators to use technology intelligently and contextually to be able to enhance their own profession and their own self as much as they can. Right?
That is the need of the hour right
That's
now.
the need of the hour.
So we really want to understand the metaverse concept in the educational setting. How does it help us?
Interesting. See, the thing is, I got into metaverses very, very early on. I first discovered the concept of the metaverse in 1997
Wow.
when I read this book by an author called Neil Stephenson called Snow Crash. And that just opened up my eyes as to what I wanted the internet to be. If you look at the 90s, we were just about getting into websites and people were just understanding what the net was. At that time itself, I was thinking three-dimensional virtual worlds, and I was very disappointed looking at those printed the text websites and saying,
It says you're very ahead of the time now.
I
Because
guess.
metaverses, we just,
Right.
people are aware, we just thought about it when the Facebook becomes meta.
Yeah, 2022. This was, at least like 20 years ahead of that.
Yeah, big time.
And 2003, when I became an educator, and I'm a visiting faculty for a large number of colleges here,
Okay.
it was very apparent to me that there were lots of limitations when it came to people teaching other people, whether using technology or not, right? It was very apparent to me that there's a stark difference between even two teachers teaching the same
Same
subject.
subject.
It was very upsetting to me in a sense when I saw that a lot of institutions didn't have resources to properly teach their kids through experience. Right? Now, for example, if you're teaching, say, automotive design, right, it's very difficult in those days, especially in the 90s, for institutions to actually
Set up all
get
these
people
things.
to start
Yeah.
working hands-on. So I saw this as a very interesting, and it was a very localized situation at that time. So if you were in the vicinity of a college, or if you managed to get into a college, you'd have to travel. I wanted a situation where anybody could teach anyone anything at any point from anywhere in the world, which is why I started exploring metaverses.
Okay.
In 2006, and 2007, I was in this metaverse called Second Life, which
Okay.
is the oldest metaverse in existence today. It was founded in 2003,
Oh,
and it's still running.
it's still viable.
Yeah, 22 years later, it's still very much a happening thing. I go there like a lot even now.
Oh.
I have like 1,000 or 2,000 friends there.
You're calling it Second Life.
Second Life,
Wow.
it is a platform. And in Second Life, I got the opportunity to teach because I got very proficient in it. I got the opportunity to teach different teachers in how to teach inside metaverses. Right?
Okay.
It's not a cut and dried kind of situation, right? Like you have your avatar, you have the avatars of your students, you have a class and space in which you have to manage. In a sense, it's very much like a physical environment, but in a lot of very important senses, it's not. Right? So I was teaching educators those nuances that, how do you actually present something onto a screen? There's a little bit of code that you add to an object that actually,
Can you please simplify this metaverse by having in some examples so that everybody can relate?
very easy. So the automotive design example I'm talking about, if an avatar of a teacher and 10 avatars of his students are sitting in a representation of a garage, right, and they have a car in front of them,
Wow.
the teacher can actually lift the car into the air, show them different parts of it.
It's like magic
open up.
happening.
Yeah. Or if you're in a legal college or a law college, you can have a functional representation of an entire courtroom with people role playing as the judges, the jury, the executioners, the prosecutors, the defendants and stuff. If you're a student of history, it's possible to recreate any part of
Any
history that you
situation.
want.
Yeah, any
right?
situation.
And put students into that.
Wow.
Right? So the whole concept of immersion actually became very, very clear to me when I was building metaverses and teaching inside metaverses.
Wow.
Right? And as of last year, I've been a metaverse architect, a metaverse initiative by the Ministry of Education that aims to create virtual campuses for every college, every higher learning institution in the country,
In India.
in India.
Wow,
Right?
interesting.
At some point, I'm also kind of engaged with other different agencies like AICT, for example, to help them get these kind of metaverse-driven tools into their environments. I'm creating metaverses for my corporate clients, right?
Okay.
Where, for example, if I want to train people on workplace safety, right?
Yes.
So, and this is say the contractors of say one of our clients who are coming in to do a construction on their website, and they have to follow a whole bunch of rules about working at heights, about working inside confined spaces. So I create a little mini metaverse for them, where any of their employees can come at any time, right? And under the supervision of other employees or not, they can take these trainings.
Wow.
Right? So it's not like a VR experience because it's very much hands-on and very, very person to person, interpersonal based. It has the power of these kind of environments because I can just get anything into the environment that I want,
Very true.
and I can get people to actually code out these things, very, very effectively. So I can build tools that help people build their own tools inside the metaverse. So it becomes a little recursive, right?
Yeah.
So in that context, for me, it's the ideal tool.
Wow. So you talked about AI and the metaverse. Your take on using augmented reality and a little of VR into it,
So
what it is?
So basically, what happens is that AR is very different from virtual reality, and AR, augmented reality, takes your current situation, the world around you, and seamlessly puts in digital data into it.
Yes.
Right? And AI has been used for a long time. If you watch cricket, you've seen that wagon wheel where in real time they're showing the trajectory of each ball
True.
on the actual playing field. That's a good example of AI, right? So it's very good for putting in contextual real-time data into the physical environment that you're in. Now, it's still a very, after like 20 years, it's still a very emergent field, right? Because the technology to implement it is ridiculously difficult,
Okay.
right? So you must have heard of, say, Apple's Vision Pro. Now, that's one example of a tech where AR is being used to its maximum potential.
Okay.
Where you're putting on the headset and suddenly you have holograms in front of you. A lot of these holograms, you will not be able to make out if they're real objects or not. So if you get that seamless sort of integration of digital data into the real world, there are plenty of use cases you can get for education into that. Right? So teachers sitting in the real class with their real students, all of them wearing these not headsets but like glasses, smart glasses, will be able to see everything that the teacher shows them, in real time, floating in the air in front of them. So it does seem like the future of technology in a sense, right?
Wow.
But all of these technologies are really exciting. The key things that we focus on are how to make them useful and how to make them more useful than any other technology that we can use today. So this is the thing that I throw in front of my developer teams all the time.
Okay.
That देखो, I'm not in favor of using tech just for the sake of using tech. If there's a way that you can use existing technology to actually
Enhance something.
function better than the emergent technology you're using, use the old technology. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's more effective. Why are you forcing virtual reality, for instance, down somebody's throat? So these kind of things are like really important. That yes, use technology, but please make sure that the use of your technology is contextual and and useful to the task.
Very true. Thank you very much, sir, to giving us time and for your such important discussions. From here, we get to know that it's the need of hour is to use technology as much as we can, but be cautious about the technology should be in the background and we should work on the uses and the application of that. We talked about the different technologies here like AR, VR, or metaverses, AI, how we can use it in our educational setup. And nowadays, AI is being mostly used in the forms of LLMs, and LLMs could be a big tool to empower our teaching learning concepts. It can help us in many ways, and we can also bring out different technologies here. And as sir effectively talked about, that we should, as an educator, the most important thing for us is to be open to learning always. We need to learn to update ourselves and move further. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief.